All right. Thank you very much for attending the first annual Napa Solano Central Labor Council Building Trades Labor Academy. My name is John Riley. I'm the Executive Director of the Napa Solano Central Labor Council. On my left is Luke Ronchimon, who's the head of the Napa Solano Building Trades Council. Once again, thank you very much for coming. Normally when labor councils or labor feds put on a candidate training program, it's geared toward elected officials and or potential candidates for elected office. And we are hoping to impart some information that will help you dramatically as you come into interview in front of labor for the various positions. But we've also identified as labor that we have a long way to go educating our members as well as our friends and neighbors in the community about who labor is, what labor stands for, and why we become politically active. We have a very diverse group of folks in this room right now. Some might think that nobody would expect to be standing in the same room unless there was a golf ball getting hit, or maybe somebody placing their hand over a Bible, right? But we have a very diverse group of folks here from our community, and we would like this training program to be question-driven. We have a microphone in the middle of the hall here. We have broken our academy into various segments. And I don't know that even some of our own members, that are union members, realize the diverse group of folks that we have within our own labor family. They often say that the House of Labor has a lot of rooms. And the House of Labor is a family like everybody else. And the House of Labor has disagreements from time to time as we try to find out where we're going to be settling on various issues. And so we have broken it down into public sector, public safety, education, the building trades, healthcare, private sector workers. Those are all the components that make up labor. And so it's very easy to throw out terms like big labor or it's just those union folks again, because it is such a large group of folks. Here in Napa and Solano County, we have over 50,000 union members that reside in Napa and Solano County. Most of you would be surprised to learn that we have the densest county, when we talk about Solano County, as far as union members in the state of California. And so, you know, we in Solano County had a very long historic history, labor history. The Mare Island Shipyard was one example. All those folks over there were labor union folks. And so a lot of the folks in this room will be running for office. Some of the folks in this room are our neighbors and friends out in the community that came to hear a little bit more about what it is that makes up labor unions. I'd like to thank our hosts, the Iron Workers, Local 378. Jeff McEwen is here somewhere. And so the first presenter that we have is Caitlin Vega, who is with the California Labor Federation. And what Caitlin would like to do is give a little bit of an overview on the union, significant union achievements and some of the issues that are facing the men and women that work in our different trades. Caitlin?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Caitlin Vega. I work for the California Labor Federation. That is basically the state AFL-CIO. We are the umbrella organization for almost all of the unions in California. And so we touch on issues that are the full range of the unions you'll see here, as well as on some other issues that I will mention. So I want to just kind of start by talking about why are we all here? I went to work for labor because I grew up in a union family. My parents taught me as a kid what it meant to be in a union, that it was about a brotherhood, a solidarity, workers supporting each other and looking out for each other and having strength when they got together to make things better. So I always knew I wanted to work for the labor movement. For most of us who work for the labor movement, this is very personal. We really believe in this, And we see it as more than just a specific issue. We see it more broadly as really fighting for a middle class in this country, really fighting for economic equality, for opportunities, for things to be better for our kids. And so for those of you who are running for office, I think that what we most want is to have those kinds of conversations with you about our vision and labor's vision for what a fair economy means and how we can build that together. So normally what unions do, for those who don't know and haven't been a part of a local union, unions represent their members, right? So unions negotiate contracts, unions respond when members have issues or concerns, unions typically work very closely with management to resolve problems, to promote their particular industry or their particular company. And unions also engage in political action. Our members tend to be, especially members who are active in their unions, tend to be people who are very engaged in their community, who really care about what's going on, who have strong interest and passion about issues and about making a difference. And so our political action program is an important part of what we do as a labor movement. Increasingly over the last couple of decades, unions have focused on the importance of being engaged in the political process because it's impossible. I mean, if our primary role is to represent our members, it's impossible to do that well without engaging in the political process. There are so many issues that have ramifications for our members, both directly and indirectly. I work in Sacramento, I work at our legislative office, so I spend most of my time in the state capitol. On issue after issue after issue, what you see when you sit in long, boring hearings in the state capitol, which most people have never actually seen or participated in, is you see industry lobbyists on one side and union lobbyists on the other. So we have, issues around the California Labor Federation, who I work for, will sponsor bills that are about protecting workers' rights. And then there will be kind of business side lobbyists. Sometimes they're opposing. Beyond the specific kind of labor protections, we hear from our members that they want protection against foreclosures. Our members are part of our community. They're not just impacted on the job. They're real people with families who care about real issues. And so we engage in issues beyond just specific labor issues like trying to deal with foreclosures. And it's union lobbyists on one side and banks on the other. And so often I think what people don't understand is that if unions were not active in politics, there would basically be one side, and that would be the corporate side. That is, especially if you spend time in the Capitol, that is pretty much who you will see there. That's who can afford lobbyists. And so our participation in the political process is really an attempt to try to level that playing field and try to make sure that working people and working families and the middle class that we are trying to rebuild in this really terrible economy have a voice. So that's who we are and who we stand for and why we think it's so important for our members and our unions to have a voice in politics. I'll stop there and see if people have any questions.
We may have a fast show today. Thank you very much, Caitlin. When Caitlin talks about the California Labor Federation and what they do for our members, and that at a statewide level, and that impacts every working man and woman that works in the state of California that's not only a union member, but a non-union member. It can't be refuted that in places where you have strong union membership and strong union jobs, that it brings up the economy of folks around. And so when we say that we're fighting for the middle class was built by union workers, and especially after emerging from the last depression. A lot of the candidates in here wonder what our process is when we get involved in the political process and how we are going to be doing our interviews this year. And most of you, or some of you, I've seen in front of our group more than once. And so when we have our interview process, which will be coming up in starting next Tuesday, And we have interviews going every Tuesday and Thursday through August 18th. Folks that have already started running campaigns, already announced their campaign, and got a hold of us early, they'll be coming in and interviewing us actually before the filing deadline. But we have to wait for that filing deadline so we know who those candidates actually are that are going to be running in the final allotment. And so that's why we will be having our deliberations on the 18th. For those of you that are looking to run for office, you can sign up for a interview with Shirley in the back of the room, and you'll be set. And so we really encourage you to do that. But what we do in the Napa Solano Central Labor Council teams with the building trades, and also with a group called United Workers for Local Government, and we have been holding interviews for about the last 10 years. And we bring in members and labor leaders from the various affiliates to the Labor Council and to the building trades, and we sit down and very thoroughly interview our candidates. And so then we have to vet that process out. You know, as I said, the House of Labor has a lot of room, has many rooms, and has many issues that are facing them. And so we have to try to look for the candidate or candidates that are going to best represent labor. It has labor's core interest at heart. And if you are fortunate enough to receive an endorsement from the Labor Council, then you can be assured, and the public can be assured, that the people that are endorsed by the Labor Council are folks that labor has confidence in that are going to fight for their issues. And so anybody that knows of any candidates, anybody that's thinking about running, please get a hold of us and schedule an interview as soon as possible. So our next speaker is Brian Purnell from the Vacaville Firefighters, Local 3501. And he is going to talk about public safety. We had a police officer that was scheduled to come in and talk about the police department aspect of public safety, but he was called into a work emergency and won't be able to make it. So, Ryan, if you want to, you can either take the portable mic or you can come up to the podium.
All right, so like John said, my name is Ryan Purnell, Local 3501 with the Vacaville Firefighters. I apologize, I had a PowerPoint presentation. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties over there, so I'm going to be looking down quite a bit. But we have 68 active union members in Vacaville, and we support the City Council, County Board of Supervisors, and have goals to support the school board. So we just pretty much deal with just local. The Vacaville Firefighters Union, we have further a common goal in general welfare of the residents by promoting improvements in education and public about firefighter protection and safety. We put out public safety announcements on the television, just anywhere from swimming safety tips to smoke detector safety tips. So we promote the welfare of our active and retired members and firefighters in general. Long track record of having voters supporting our endorsements. We do carry a little bit of political clout in the city of Vacaville. We are very active with doing interviews with candidates. We sit down, we give them about 2 weeks to look over a candidate questionnaire, and we encourage them to come back to us and ask if they have any questions about what they see on the questionnaire. We want them to come back. We want them to be able to do some research online. We don't want to throw them any curveballs. We just want to see what their actual beliefs are, so that way we can give an endorsement. We do signs and mailings, precinct walks, contributions, fundraisers, and other campaign material. Just a little bit of background with the firefighters right now, with what we're dealing with. A lot of us live in the city of Vacaville, and we do have a vested interest in the city of Vacaville. They came to us with when we had a closed contract. We sat down at the table 3 times, gave up 3 different concessions with the city that included frozen positions, elimination of overtime through a brownout. We did furlough days. Our major thing with the contract being closed, we actually started doing medical and dental, which increased or equaled a 10% decrease to the city costs. And in February, we went ahead and signed a 1-year contract with the city, and we're now we increased our first contributions and we're now paying 19% into our retirement system, which is pretty significant since the average right now into the CalPERS pension funding is about 8%. So I want to talk a little bit about the pension, the CalPERS system, just because a lot of people have a little bit of a misunderstanding on it. It's pretty much out there under attack, and just want to clear up a few things. So right now, CalPERS is the largest public pension funding. It has $237.5 billion. The pension benefits go out to 1.6 million active members, and with the members and their families, 1.3 million administer health benefits from CalPERS. The average CalPERS pension is $22.20 a month. Next year, the state of California is going to contribute $170 million less to the state employees due to members paying more into their pension and lower than expected payroll and cost of living increases. So it's going to be a little bit easier on the state of California, and just because of all the contributions that union is doing as a whole. The average contribution, like I said, is 8% in the CalPERS, 5% of the pay for legislative, judicial branch, and California State University employees, and it goes all the way up to 11% for public safety. There's a CalPERS dollar, what they say. It's just a pension buck. It's the shared responsibility. 64 cents of the CalPERS dollar is through investment earnings, which a lot of people don't understand, just because there's a lot of global fixed income that they put into it, private equity, they have public stocks, infrastructure, forest land, inflation-linked bonds, and they also have real estate, and that's where they get a good majority of their money is through investments. 21 cents of the CalPERS dollars from employers, and 15 cents of the CalPERS dollars coming from the members. So the members are actually putting into their retirement system. Just want to talk a little bit about pension holidays. I don't know if anybody ever heard of that name, but during the times 1999 all the way up to 2002, the employers were able to take pension holidays because the investments were doing so good for CalPERS. And so the employees actually continued to make their contributions. It never went down. They never took a break. But the cities or their employers were actually able to have a little bit of a break on it. And so obviously now with the economy the way that it is, the cities are putting in their full amount. CalPERS invests between $17 billion and $18 billion directly back into the California economy. The CalPERS benefits payments generate about $26 billion in economic activity, and it supports more than 93,600 jobs. Every dollar paid to CalPERS beneficiaries residing in the state of California stimulates $2.26 in economic activity throughout the state. The CalPERS reports preliminary for the 2010-2011 fiscal year, they had a gain of 20.7%. So it's up to $37 billion. So they were at $200.5 billion. It's now up to $237.5 billion. It marks the best performance gain in 14 years, and it's the second straight fiscal year the pension fund has exceeded its long-term goal of annualized earning target of 7.75%. Also, something that just came out a couple days ago from the CalPERS legal counsel. Pension promises to current and retired CalPERS members are a vested right and protect under state and federal laws. Contract clauses of state and federal law establish benefits as a form of deferred compensation and part of the employment contract. Future employees have no vested rights, so it's only just the active employees that we're talking about. And just kind of a little bit basis on that is people that are putting things on the ballot that don't understand the laws. It is taking a little bit of a tax on taxpayer dollars and everything, because it is protected under state and federal laws. So, is there any questions that I can answer just on public safety and?
It's not really a question for you specifically, but you gave us a lot of good data with your statistics, and I would love to have a copy of that.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Is there a way that we can get?
We're going to be directing everybody to the website, and I'm going to have links to a lot of these articles where the statistics are coming out, and so you'll be able to go to the website that Mr. Riley's going to put up, and we'll have all that information for everyone.
On the bottom of your agenda, the very bottom has our website. It's also up on I never figured that everybody would be so shy about questions. But obviously what Ryan was talking about, the fact that if you are going to run for an office, more than likely you're going to go in front of the firefighters and possibly the police officers, as well as interviewing in front of the Napa Solano Central Labor Council. We all participate together, right? So Ryan, when they come and sit down in front of the firefighters and or police officers, we have, hopefully we were hoping to have a police officer here as well, if that didn't work out. But what are the biggest issues that are going to face, that are facing you right now, and how can the candidates, number one, get the information, and number two, what are those hot button topics that are going to be, you know, people come to these interviews, a lot of times, I've had an experience with candidates that use Google, and they Google something, and they put the information down on a piece of paper, and then they get into the interview, and uh-oh, it was the wrong information, right? That was put out by another organization or whatnot. So that's one of the other things that we're trying to accomplish here by having this forum, is so that you can identify what those issues are before you actually get in to do the evaluation. But we are going to be putting any information that's presented today onto our website so that the candidates and the general public can come out and get that information. So what are the, you know, the holy grail for the fire service as far as issues?
So right now the issue, the reason why I brought it up was is the pension reform. There's a lot of talk about the pension reform and sustainability for our pensions. So I just want to be able to steer the candidates to being able to look at CalPERS and look at that. There is a lot of pension reform going on, change of formulas. There's CAL FIRE and CHP have changed over to retirement age of 55, which we think is actually going to start going across the state. So it'll be a two-tier retirement system. But I mean, we put out the questionnaire for everyone, and if you have questions, just a misunderstanding on the question, or you just want to know a little bit of background, we encourage you guys to call us back, email us with any of your questions, so that way we can give you a little bit of background on it, some websites where you can go and actually do the research of kind of like a neutral area, and then you can give us what your true thoughts are. So with the budget, public employees right now, we're just depending on what kind of cuts come down is what we're going to be talking about next year when we have council candidates that are going to be running.
Thank you.
I have a proposal.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ivory Hood from Travis Unified School District.
Walk up to the mic, sir, then everybody can.
My name is Ivory Hood from Travis Unified.
Oh, yeah, yeah, think about that.
Testing. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I always wanted to do that. My name is Ivory Hood from Travis Unified School District, and I'm an incumbent this year, coming up on my third term. We're kind of what I call a tri-city district, where we're linked between Fairfield, Travis Unified, and Vacaville. And you mentioned that you guys are giving support to school districts, and I was curious to know what types of support and how can we look into that.
So right now we're in the process of changing our bylaws so we can start supporting school board endorsements for people that are running for the school board. And once we do that, we'll actually be approaching people that are in the Travis Unified School District as well as the Vacaville Unified School District to have people come out. We'll be doing interviews when their spots open. We will approach those that are putting their name in to run for.
Yeah, let me rephrase my question. What type of support are you guys currently giving to the student district? Not necessarily my district. You said that you guys support. I'm assuming Vacaville. What type of thing do you guys do to support the students?
What I was saying was we're going to be looking into endorsements, but supporting wise, I mean, we do get out to the community. We do donations down to the schools that they come to us. We just donated to the Vacaville High School. They were going to have their music was going to be taking cuts. So we went ahead and donated $1,000 to the Vacaville, just the music fund that they had. So we get approached quite a bit with schools, just with different things like that, with sports right now being under fire and the music being under fire. They come to us and we've been able to donate money to those organizations that are trying
we've cut $40 million, but nobody would ever know. And so in Vacaville, with the firefighters, you mentioned brownouts. So how many firefighters did you start with when you started? Where are you now? And what would bring you back up? And are you guys even thinking about a parcel tax or anything? Or are you just hoping and praying that, you know, we don't lose any lives and we'll all try to get through this?
That's a good thing. We're staying with the city council right now, just trying to make sure that we maintain our 7-minute response time. We don't want that to go down. We have a 7-minute response time 90% of the time. We are down 9 frozen firefighter paramedic positions, and then we have quite a few administration positions that are frozen, including a deputy chief position that's frozen. We run our own ambulances in the city, so we actually generate $7 million a year into the general fund, which is quite unique compared to most other fire departments. A lot of fire departments have private ambulances. So we're actually able to maintain right now with 3 ambulances. The brownout actually occurred with one of our ambulances. That was our slowest ambulance in the city. And so they're actually at a cross-staffing right now where an engine company and an ambulance are out of one station. And if we're down to our last ambulance, then they'll get off their engine company and go on their ambulance and take the ambulance portion of the call. But it allows for us to be able to have those frozen positions and not backfill them. And we don't have to pay overtime that way with having the ambulance browned out. So, but we still do have an advanced life support engine company that's in the Browns Valley area that can take their ambulance if they need to. So right now, we have a standards of coverage survey that was done in 2003, and that's kind of what we've been falling back on, is that we were at that time, we were bursting at the seams. We have a lot of red areas in the city of Vacaville, and like I said, we kind of fall back on that standards of coverage, and until we get the funding back, we're not going to see an increase at all. So,
Kimball.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, do you have a list of cities that will work off the same program of kind of 2 separate interview processes and support, like you guys have in Vacaville? What's Vacaville the only city that's doing that for this election in November?
Actually, I know that the city of Vallejo has council in their races and the Vallejo firefighters. Kyle's in the room. Kyle, are you guys going to be interviewing the council candidates on your own?
No.
Okay, so the Vallejo firefighters will be participating in the Central Labor Council's endorsement process. The city of Benicia, Todd Matthews, is in the back. Are you guys planning on doing your own interviews outside of the Labor Council?
We'll participate with you guys.
Okay, great. And as you receive your packets that come out from the Labor Council, what we'll try to do is put down all the different affiliates and organizations that will be participating to make it a little bit easier. But you know, when you have a long drawn-out process like that, the organizations might remain the same, but the players might be interchanged as far as who's interviewing the folks. Did that answer your question, Kim?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth. And then John.
I really appreciated your details on CalPERS program, and was wondering if you want to talk a little bit about unfunded liability. There's a lot of publications that come out about that, and there seems to be an organization down in Texas that is particularly focused on saying that the unfunded liability is really high, and that's picked up by well-respected organizations in California, such as the League of Cities. So could you perhaps provide some information from your research about the so-called unfunded liability?
There was a report in the spring of 2011, so this year, spring of this year, that talked about the funding just being about 70% funded. And right now with the last gains that they had over the last quarter, it's above 70%. And there was some economic activists that were saying that 70% for a public pension funding is actually adequate. So there is the unfunded liability that is there right now as CalPERS continues to get back their investings. But with the 20.7% gain that they've had through their investing, it's starting to get back up where it's back to being adequate for a public pension. So for their funded liability.
Caitlin, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in response to some of the issues that he was talking about, and also in response to the woman from CTA. I mean, everyone here knows the kinds of cuts that we've all seen in our own communities. And I think something that people may not know as well is the kinds of efforts that our unions have engaged in response to these kinds of cuts and in response to the economy that we face. You just heard from the firefighters, they reopened and renegotiated their contract 3 times. We are seeing that up and down the state. And so a lot of times on issues like pensions and many other things, there are efforts at the state level to try to repeal these things, to take away collective bargaining rights. You've all heard about what happened in Wisconsin, where the governor basically used the state of the budget to strip away collective bargaining rights. There are similar efforts underway here in California. A whole range of ways, from trying to just kind of shut unions out of the political process and silence the worker perspective, to actually trying to eliminate the right to engage in collective bargaining, to just trying to slash everybody's pensions. And what we see is at the local level, things are actually working. Our unions and cities, and our unions and private employers are engaged in collective bargaining, which we fundamentally believe is the way to resolve disputes, is the way to build partnerships. Our unions and the people that they bargain with in management have long-term relationships, have shared interests and goals in keeping their city or their school or their company going. And so what we see now in response to the economy is we see our unions really taking this seriously and really taking responsibility, and we see things like what you just heard about happening in Vacaville, where our unions are having to make some really tough decisions, because we all represent people who are struggling to get by, month to month. These are really hard times. We represent people, in the trades. I'm sure you'll hear 40% unemployment. And so it's a hard time to take these cutbacks, but we are, conscious of the state of the economy and conscious of the importance of collective bargaining. So just especially for those of you who are going to be candidates, that is an issue that's really fundamental to labor, and that I'm sure, the unions that you work with would be happy to sit down and talk you through why we think it's such a powerful thing and so good for labor and management to sit together and resolve these issues locally.
John.
Thank you, John. My name is Jonathan Gordon, and I'm the president of Southern Solano County United Democrats. Caitlin, thank you for your comments there, because it leads into exactly what I wanted to ask Ryan. On the 3 renegotiations, can you amplify that a bit and give me a little insight into the tone of the bargaining? Was it adversarial? Was it bitter? Was it familiar and friendly? Can you tell me what it was like?
It was actually pretty familiar and friendly. I mean, we were able to meet. We're pretty close with our city, and we were able to sit down. They were actually able to give us the numbers. We looked over the budget. They were able to explain some things. We have some guys that are very well knowledgeable on budgets, city budgets and everything, so they were able to come to us and say, look, the medical was the big one, and we were actually able to start paying our dental. We're paying 8%, or just over 8% for our health care now, and that was able to free up quite a bit. But yeah, they came to us just saying, we need to cut $960,000, how are we going to get there? And they were very open to how we can make different cuts to come up with that money.
So it was shared sacrifice for your community. The point, I would assume that part of the vetting process is to discover whether you have candidates that are pursuing an agenda of elimination of the unions. And is that upfront, or is that tacitly implied in the questions? In other words, what happens if you endorse someone and they get up there, and let's say that they're responsible to the teabag party, and their teabag members want them to eliminate the union? How would you respond to that? Or what would you do with a candidate that flip-flops? And any other insights that you could share on your redoing the contracts would be appreciated. Or anyone here about that? I'd like to hear more insights on that. I'll take the question.
Certainly, you know, we're like any other citizen. Our members are like any other citizen out there, except for we happen to have the luxury of being organized and have leadership that knows about the issues, is well versed on the issues, right? And so, and can mobilize. You know, we can't compete with the money. We cannot compete with the money out there that some candidates bring to a campaign, especially statewide campaigns, but even local campaigns. But what we can do is we organize our members, and we put the boots on the streets and the butts in the seats. And they're walking precincts for the candidates that they endorse, and they're also sitting in those chairs and making those phone calls, whether it's for issues or for particular candidates. As far as what happens when a candidate, you know, say flip-flops, right? Well, that's why they don't have indefinite terms. And so they have to come and re-interview in front of labor again. And certainly, has been evidenced many, many times that candidates have been endorsed by labor organizations and come up for re-election, and they no longer have that support. But it's incumbent upon labor as a whole, not only our leadership but our members, right, is to have that dialogue with those elected officials once you've helped them to get elected. You know, people often say that, you know, we got you elected. It's a misnomer, right? There's so many components in getting candidates elected that I don't think anybody can really take the sole credit for getting somebody elected. All we hope to have at the end of the day is access to the candidates and knowledge of a shared commitment for working men and women. So, you know, like I said, if they flip-flop, they still have to come back and interview again and, you know, and re-elect. Anybody else have anything to add? Any more questions? Yes, Mark.
Mark Board of Napa City Council, and also working father of two, running a campaign. I say that because I think it gets to my question, or to my point. There is a very finite amount of time when I'm not sleeping to do everything else that needs to get done, including washing the clothes and kids. So, you know, as a working person, it's helpful to me to have a couple of resources. And I was going to ask this question of Caitlin, and kind of thought, well, wait till everybody spoke, but it seems like question time. You know, I don't actively go out and seek and call individually people to say, hey, what's going on? What can I do to help? Because frankly, there's plenty going on without me asking. So it's helpful to be on an email list, you know, sort of an all-inclusive, like, here's the top 3 things that you could do to really help now. Maybe that exists and I'm not on the email list, or maybe there's a website I need to go to check. But all I'm saying is that as far as being supportive, with all the other things that go on, it's helpful to know in the city of Napa or in Napa County, the best thing that you can focus on, or write a letter, or do whatever it is, you know, these 3 things go forward there. So that was the one thought that came to my mind when you were talking, Kate. Not specific to fire, but it made me think about labor negotiations in general. There's questions that you might ask of a candidate, what do you support, where do you lean, that sort of thing. And I think that's helpful. As somebody who's been elected and who sits in labor negotiations rooms and who's been through the labor negotiation process, it's a pain. It's very tricky. You'll have city managers, some of them, who will say, do not talk to the employees. Causes problems for us. City council people, shut up and stay out of the way. You're making it hard for us. I have you know, employees who will come to us and say, we just want to talk with you. We just want you to listen. And you say, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and talk and listen. And you know, I have experienced occasions where just listening has been interpreted as taking it, giving it a direction or action. Is there a service that's provided where there's sort of a third party that isn't, you know, not to pick on fire, but you know, fire, police, city employees, or whatever? Is there some sort of a third-party service that's provided where I can go and say, you know, it's not really comfortable for me to sit down and talk directly with this group or that group, but to get information, because what ends up happening regularly is your city manager will give you X information, the other group will give you Y information, the two are this far apart, And as a city council person, it is just really hard to get a sense of what the real truth is. And you want to make a fair answer. You want to be fiscally prudent, but sensitive to the needs of the association. So that's a long couple of questions. But, you know, if you ask for questions, that's rubber meets the road kind of stuff.
Do you meet with any of your unions? Do you meet with any of your union people?
Yeah.
Yes. So you're able to go down and sit down and have coffee with them and hear the ideas, or is that something that your city manager has told you that they do not want you to do?
Well, they said we don't want to do it, and I told them to stick it, but I got those already. But the problem is, and some people know, it just keeps coming back. You know, you hear the sky's blue, and they'll say, "Oh no, it's orange," and it just happens over and over again. And it just would be easier, I think, and get out of that vicious circle if it comes up time and time again. If there was a third party that you could go and say, you know what, I'm not going to talk to the city manager, I'm not going to talk directly with people who are being perceived as just taking care of their own personal interests, because that's how it comes out, and they're just in it to protect their own money. If there was another group to go to, another individual or something, an analyst or whatever, you could say, you know, I've looked at the arguments from this person or group, and I've looked at the city manager's budget over here, and yeah, here's where it's not syncing up. That would be a huge help to any candidate who's either running or already elected.
Well, if I could, I'd like to just say one thing about kind of the role of the Labor Council. We, the state fed, or the statewide organization, and in each region there's a Labor Council which plays a similar role locally as kind of the umbrella organization for the local unions. And that is part of kind of what your Labor Council can be, is somebody to go to kind of say, hey, here's all these different kinds of situations I'm dealing with, what's your advice, or you know, what do you think are the priorities? I do think it's important to have, you know, obviously to have the relationships, especially with the unions that you're directly negotiating with, because you're going to hear the perspective of city management either way. So it's important to hear directly from that union, because sometimes that intermediary is not always accurate. But I also think that is part of what the Labor Council is here for. Kind of going back to your first question, everybody's busy, everybody's got a million demands. The Labor Council should be kind of a clearinghouse to be able to say, here's where we have hotspots. You know, you have 5 extra minutes, here's where we have kind of a crisis where people could really use some help. Or, you know, or do you have a crisis going on? Let's figure out who's the right person to talk to and how to solve that. Those are kind of the local, you know, problem solvers. I mean, and being able to, I mean, John, I know, is in touch with all of his unions and talking to them all day long, and pretty constantly aware of what's going on, and can kind of, I think, be helpful in figuring out how to do that, especially with a limited amount of time.
And as for your first question, for those of you that did not sign in, if you can sign in, we'll make sure that we provide a list of all the speakers today and the contact information, how to get a hold of them, especially for those of you that are seeking office, so that you can call folks and get some elaboration on some of your questions. Mark brought up a good point. You know, one of the reasons that unions become politically active, or we're forced to become politically active, is so that we have a voice at the table. So that our elected officials, so that we have access to our elected officials. Because the first thing that management will do to their councils when they come in is, like you said, don't talk to labor, right? And sometimes they tell you it's against the law. Well, then all of a sudden they find out it's not against the law, so now the next step that they do is, okay, you know, we're a team, and we have to work together, and let's kumbaya and huddle up, everybody put their hand in the middle, and we're going to go, we'll make a pledge that we're not going to talk to our employees. Well, quite frankly, that's BS. Because if that's the modus of operandi, then the only people that you're hearing from is your management staff, right? Our goal when we get done interviewing and endorsing candidates and going through the election process is to have somewhat as good of a relationship with the folks that we didn't endorse as with the folks that we do endorse. I have just as good a relationship with folks that we've never endorsed one time, but I know that I have access to those people. I can go in anytime I make a phone call, they're going to call me back. That's the goal. But it's information that elected official needs. You have to have the information from both sides. It has to be balanced. So, one more question on this when we move to the next segment. Yes, Raymond.
Oh, okay. first of all, thank you for bringing that point up. That's very true. I have, as president of the school board in Vallejo, I have breakfast every Wednesday morning prior to our school board meetings with the VEA president. And in the short time that actually this started when she became president, I think, having these breakfasts and these conversations and actually going over the agenda, you get to hear both sides of the story. And being an elected official, it's our responsibility. You know, we don't work for the district, we work for the people. And so, and it's absolutely essential that you get all the information that you can before making a decision on any Kentucky vitamin. And we've made tremendous headway by having this dialogue open. Thank you for bringing that up. Great advice for everyone. I have a question for Caitlin. Being in the building and being a child advocate, you must remember that all your members were once children, and all our children are prospective members. So, is there any future or thoughts about a dialogue cross-pollinating with other lobbyist organizations, such as the PTA, which is the largest and oldest volunteer organization in the country? We have 950,000 members in California, and also the California State School Boards Association. Those two entities have been working together, and we see a future and maybe carrying on the dialogue with them as well for the future of public education. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably each of the unions here is involved in coalitions with lots of different organizations that work on similar issues. I know in Sacramento there's an education coalition, which is basically a labor management coalition, also including the PTA and lots of other organizations that care about public education and that do, you know, lobby together to make sure that there's enough education funding. So there, I would guess within all of our sectors, we do work in those kinds of coalitions. I really do see that, you know, all of our members are more than just the work they do and have families, and that we have kind of a broader vision of who we're looking out for and who we're fighting for.
Thank you. Yeah, coalition building is one of the biggest things that we can do as members of our community. Right? We have to reach out to those different folks that have shared ideals, and we have to also realize that those shared ideals may change, right? We may disagree on some issues from time to time, but if we agree on the majority of issues, then we have to keep that dialogue open. Right? The next segment that we'd like, and if you have any questions, you know, that pop into your head as this comes, we have a great panel here who can answer any of the questions. The next speakers that we have is in the education field. And we have Kevin McNamara with the California Teachers Association and Linda Blanchard with the California School Employees Association, which are two separate organizations. And that's, you know, we want to be able to show you folks what the differences are between the teachers and the support staff that work at the educational facility. So we'll start with Kevin.
Hi. Is it on now? No.
It's on.
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Kevin McNamara, and I'm here representing the Fairfield Assistant Teachers Association and the California Teachers Association. And we're involved in local elections because they affect how we do our job. Put my glasses back on. These actually have prescriptions in them. You know, about 90% of what we do in our classrooms comes from elected officials, either at the federal level, the state level, or the school board level. On the federal level, we're involved in the reauthorization of the ESEA. The state provides us with the vast majority of our money, and locally, school boards hire the superintendents, they hire the administrators that supervise us, and we have an opportunity to look at who and to have input to who does our supervision. We work on, of course, wages and benefits, but we also work on class size, curriculum. The books that are in our classroom are affected by elected officials. So we're here because they're that important to us. FSUDA, the Fairfield Student Teachers Association, has a political action committee. We do endorse candidates, and we run what are called independent expenditure campaigns. After we endorse candidates, we help them with by running our own campaigns for them. We have our own endorsement process. Besides the CLC process, we will be endorsing candidates ourselves. And there are 1,000 members in FSUDA. The majority of them live in Solano County, and there are several thousand CTA members in Solano County itself. And they have voices in every one of your communities. They're very active in your communities. You see them all the time. Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Blanchard. I'm from the
It's not
working. This one? Hi, I'm Linda Blanchard. I represent the California School Employees Association. We are the nation's largest association for classified workers. In California, we represent over 220 members. As Kevin was saying, we don't see us. We are behind the scenes at schools. We're the bus drivers, the custodians, the food service workers, the payroll workers, the office techs, the instructional aides. You don't see what we do. We support education. Each of our members is there because they want to help education. We do not make the family salaries. We've mentioned that the average per salary will be up to retirement $2,200. For classified employees, for CSEA will be less than $1,200, which will be our average per retirement. Many of our members cannot even get into the retirement system because we work less than 4 hours a day. Some members I know work 5 days a week and get paid for 8 hours, 5 days a week. The bus drivers work an incredible 12-hour schedule, and maybe only get 6 hours because they work from 6 to 9 and then come back at 9 to 3, from 3 to 6 to pick up the kids and drop them off. With all this extra time we do have a lot of time to do political action. And we look forward to that. It's interesting, somebody said, what happens if we get you in office, we can get you out of office. We do cross over county lines, we cross over school board lines. We support each other because the cut to education to one will affect all of us. You haven't seen the cuts of wheel taken because we used to be 8-hour employees. Many people have dropped down year after year after year. At the school levels, you have to have a certain minimum hours before you can even achieve health care. Most of our members can't. Our members are the working poor. For some of them, this is their second job they do to survive, to support their family. So it really comes to heart when we talk about wages and cuts. We've made the cuts that are not seen by the public. Don't treat us different than teachers, because don't put us against them either. We are each important to support for each of those. The teachers have a rule right now where they have to be noticed by March 15th if they're getting laid off. Classified employees only need 45-day notice. So what happens we've noticed from school boards is that they'll figure out their budget, they'll, we need more, then they start cutting classified. Throughout the year, we are on that deadline, that pedestal, like hopefully you get the budget. For there to work with school boards, we have suggestions on how we can save and even perhaps make money. Don't assume you can have somebody do our jobs. Volunteers do not do the job we do. We're trained, we know what we're doing. I can give you stories of volunteer parents coming in, thinking they're doing well, come in and scrub the floors on school. Scrub the counters. Although they don't scrub the stuff with the stuff that's legal in schools. Kids get sick. We've had volunteers who volunteer to paint benches. Wonderful. Without checking with the union first, the classified union, they paint the benches, but they also have to paint the school wall. Well, now you've got a bigger project, which no one's going to do for free. So don't feel that we are just those who give a second guess to. Also, don't contract our work. It's illegal, and we'll sue you for it, because it is our work. We work long and hard. Every right that we have for classified employees, we have had to go through the legislative process to get there. So we will look at what you are supporting or not supporting. In CSEA, we support people who support education and the working families. That's our goals. That's where it is. I got a couple things. We do have a lot of time. Most of our members live in the community they work in. have funds available to help run your campaigns. If we support you, if you support us, we will remember if you promised something and did it. You'll be there. We are usually at every school board talking about our needs. We go to we go to city council meetings to find out what's actually happening around there. We absolutely believe in the labor organizations. We support them 100%. Firefighters, tax fitters, all these people, because they work in schools, they work in our communities, and that's where we're growing up. That's where our kids are. Let's see. I think I could.
Any specific questions for on education? Yes, John.
Yes. I was having a little trouble hearing you, and so when you reply or restate, could you speak up a bit for me? You were talking about volunteers' impact in the work environment and your reaction to it. Could you please amplify that so that I have a better idea exactly what you're saying?
A lot of councils and school boards are public members. So I get on school board meetings where the school board will say, well, why can't we just have a volunteer go out there and mow the field for the baseball? Well, that sounds like a great idea, except they're not mowing appropriately. They don't fill in the potholes. They don't do the stuff they're supposed to do. Volunteers cannot do the job we're doing. We are trained and we are committed to be there. I mean, people who come in 2 hours a day to do the job isn't going to be the same caliber as a person who volunteered 1 day a week to come and perhaps do something. And when their kids grow up, they go. That's why people are still there in their jobs. There are jobs we do work with, baseball and football and anybody for a special project. We had a school who had a special gardening project and they wanted to be able to maintain their fruits and vegetables. We worked with them and had it so that the volunteers were trained right. It didn't take away our jobs. We are trying to contribute to the community we live in. Unfortunately, Vallejo just now had to lay off a bunch of classified employees. They live in that community. That poor little community is now going to be having X amount more people unemployed. We are in the communities we work for. We want to be able to make a living wage for the job we do for education.
Any other questions for the education panelists? I have one. So what, a lot of folks in the room are going to be coming in and interviewing you, some for the first time. So what are the hot topic issues they're facing? Say, the largest issue facing the teachers and the largest facing CSEA.
Well, as Monica said before, education has taken huge budget cuts. In our district, we've lost almost 200 teaching positions in the last few years. Most of us have been stuck at the same salary for the last at least 3 years, and that's probably not going to change for a while. For us, it is about our classrooms. We've had increases in class size, and hopefully when the money from the state starts coming back, we'll be able to work with the school district to get our money restored and our jobs restored.
And that is pretty much what CSA's position is: fully funded education. It's needed. This is our future. And so whatever you can commit to when you're talking with us and how you will bring that up, that you are going to receive it because fully funded education. We're not pitting other organizations against education. That's funded for our future.
I just wanted to continue to comment. It doesn't do us any good to have the state standards, K through 12, and I can't send my kids to higher ed. Solano Community College is now going to be $36 a credit. We're not even going to talk about textbooks because that cost is astronomical. When I went, which is before some of you were born, Riverside Community College was free. Right, when you went. San Diego State for me, I had one of Michelle's kids a long time ago, so we won't go there. San Diego State was $50. It is now going to cost kids that go to Sac State $6,000, $7,000. UC Berkeley is going to be 12, 13,000. So why do you, the members of the community, say to me and Kevin and the other folks in education, do a really good job, oh, but you know what, sorry, there isn't a place for them in higher ed. So that's the part I have a real hard time with. The other is that, Kevin, this fall is my 5th year without a cost of living, let alone a pay raise. Medical keeps going up. I lost $3,000 because there's no coaching. Summer school was truncated. I had to pick up a second job. So if I fall asleep in my classroom, it's because I had to pick up a second job to take care of my kids. And that happens with our CSEA folks, and that happens with a lot of other, and I know the union folks too, okay? So it's more than just what's happening with our firefighters and our police and our brothers and sisters in the trade. It also means that there's some days I wonder, why am I here? Because I don't see the public supporting me. Thank you.
Is there a question in there?
No.
I was going to say.
Sean, I was being really good back there.
I know you have been, but I was going to say that a question's not a period of comment. That's why. Thank you very much for that. All right. If there's no more questions, any time during this conversation, if you think of a question that you want to ask any of the panelists up here, just feel free to walk up, at the appropriate time. Next, we want to talk about the building trades. And, the Building Trades Association is made up of a number of different trades. They are part of the Central Labor Council. We partner with them very closely on our interviews and endorsement procedures and schedules. And we have Ben Espinoza and Lou Franchimon to speak on the building trades issues.
I'll defer to the business manager. My name is Lou. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Lou Franchimon. I'm business manager of the Napa Solano Building Trade Council. And just to give you a little information regarding our council, it's made up of 26 different construction trade unions with a membership of about 15,000 in Napa and Solano County. Each one of these individual affiliated unions have their own collective bargaining agreement, and they're different. That's why it's sometimes very difficult to work on a union job, because some of the trades may take off on a Monday because it's a holiday, and some trades don't, and it kind of slows things down. And that's why I'm kind of leading into the project labor agreement idea. We have been very successful in Solano County to install project labor agreements on large projects. And one of the things I just mentioned about different holidays, different times, different starting times, that's streamlined into a PLA. Everybody works under one agreement. All these different unions work on the same agreement. And therefore, that problem with the different negotiating contracts goes away. We all work on the one. The other thing is that our members are very proud, basically. We like to see a project come in under budget, ahead of schedule, if possible. And we've been very successful with these project labor agreements in doing that. The PLAs has worked for the Solano County very well. In fact, they've adopted a resolution to do all their major projects on the PLAs, because we show them when they build a government center in Fairfield that came in ahead of schedule and on the budget, and they were very pleased. And the problems on the job were not. There's no strike clauses in those. We have apprenticeship language, and it's pertains to the local hire issue, which we were talking about here. All the workers on the job sites are dispatched to the local hiring halls, and therefore it's mostly local people. In fact, the government center, I have a plaque hanging in my wall, where it was 85% of the workforce was Solano County workforce. And what it does, instead of having contractors come out of the Central Valley or some other place, bring their workforce in here and taking the taxpayers' money back to where they live, that money stays here and circulated right here as well as Solano County. So we promote that everywhere we go. The other issue is we're talking about the benefit packages that we have. Some of our locals are paying up to $14 an hour in health care. It's ridiculous because a lot of people don't make that per hour. But every time we sit down and negotiate, our negotiations, our craft negotiations, we usually negotiate for $1 figure. We get maybe $1 a year for the next 3 years, or a little bit more, whatever. And then we bring that back to the membership, and they decide where that money has to go. They can put it all in their pocket if they vote to do that, or they can put it in healthcare and benefit packages. And in the last 5 years, at least 5 years, all that money's been going into benefits to keep what we call our Cadillac programs, our Cadillac health programs alive, basically. And, pretty much what I feel personally, I feel it's a ripoff, but it's here. You have to deal with it. And, when you start putting your entire wage increase into healthcare just to keep that program going, there's something wrong. And we've got to take care of this healthcare problem everywhere, because as far as we're concerned, the union, we're not competitive any longer, because when you pay $15-16 an hour into healthcare, and the non-union guys are out there working, making maybe 20 flat and not having any healthcare, that's just in it. Our packages, our wage package and our benefit packages are running around between $50 and $60 an hour. And because of the healthcare increase, it keeps going up and up. We haven't really gained anything as far as wages. That's a real problem, and it's a problem with the trades, and it's a problem everywhere in healthcare. So we need to really address that. The other thing I want to mention is our apprenticeship programs. Probably California apprenticeship programs are the best in the country. I'm probably going to step on some toes, but I'm originally from the East Coast. I went through my apprenticeship there, and coming out here, it's a different story. They really are serious about their apprenticeship programs here, and the crafts do a great job of training. We bring qualified people out to the job site. If you can't do the work, you don't work. There's no question or anything. The contractor has a right to get rid of the guy, and unless there's a real problem with, he's prejudiced towards the workers, and they might file a grievance against the contractor, but most of the time, he just goes back to the hall and gets on the bench and goes out to the next job. But they have a right to make that decision. And we get paid by the hour. For every hour worked, it's not a salary, even though it's very high compared to a lot of unions and a lot of other workers. But we only work when there's work, and there isn't a whole lot right now. We have about 40% unemployment in the trade. So there's a lot of guys that are out of work. Some of the people have been out of work for over 2 years and losing their homes, and it's horrible. Running out of unemployment, and it's just one of the worst times I've seen that I've been around as far as construction. But when we do work, and a lot of people will say, you're working yourself out of a job. Our guys are out there working hard. A good example was that 405 down in Southern California. It was done with they did it 18 hours earlier, finished it 18 hours earlier than was supposed to be done. So again, you're working yourself out of a job. Well, maybe, but our guys feel good about it, and they knew that this was a crucial project. They had to get people back on the freeway, and they went out and did what they had to do. Getting back to the apprenticeship programs, that's what we're all about. We're training our people to work hard and do quality work. And like I said, some programs are 5 years, some programs are 3 years, some programs are 4 years. But every one of those apprentices, when they turn out as a journeyman, they can work on any job. They can go anywhere with that journeyman card. If you got a journeyman card from California, you can go anywhere else and work. So that's what we're all about.
We'll have to stand up, that way the people down here in the front can see me. I'm a little shorter on the podium. My name is Ben Espinosa. I know many of you in here, and thanks for coming out. John, thanks for putting this on. I think it's important to understand that, you know, this is all part of the partnership. We all work, live, and play in the same community. And it's important for us to understand each other's needs and wants, because if we can't put this together, let me tell you, nobody else can. It's not going to come from the feds. It's not going to come from the state level. It comes from the local level. But I want to make a couple of comments to tail off on what Lou was talking about. We're fortunate that here in Solano County, we have 5 apprenticeship programs that we're sitting in one here. We have the iron workers, we have the plumbers, we have the carpenters, we have the electricians, and we just had another one move into Benicia, which is the insulator, heat and frost. That's great for this community, because you know what that means? Our kids, as they're being trained on these public works jobs, they don't have to drive out of the area, out on the roads to go do their training. They can do the training right here where they live. Those are important things. California, as a whole, the apprenticeship program, we pour in over $100 million into our program. It's not any grant, it's all money given by the contractors and by the allocations that are made by the working members and by the leadership of the local unions. It's important to understand another item that really happens, and it really gets to the crux of the problem. If you look at what's taken place with the downfall of the monetary system, you have the bankers up there on the top, and they created this problem. They created the problem, and now we're here to deal with it. We have an opportunity here as a partnership that awarding bodies, whether you're a city, a county, a school board, it's important for us to try and get our members working, because that money, as Lou said, that money goes right back into the economy locally. Not only does it go back into the economy locally, we have our people working and training the kids. And I'm trying not to repeat that, but you know, it's important, because you people, as you are on those boards, you have the ability to vote for PLA or to ensure that the workers come from the local workforce. And that money, as taxpayers, that we are paying into, doesn't go back to a different economy. We like to have that revert back into the local economy. We all negotiate our contracts. Like Lou said, we're 35, 40% unemployed. We have the same problems on unfunded liability. You know, it's a problem that's going to fix itself in time. But again, thanks for putting this on. Thank you, folks.
Yes, Kimball.
Yeah, a comment and a couple of questions. I'd like to hear that 85% number, man. That's great. Keeping our jobs in Solano County. Good part. And the first question is, do you guys, the apprenticeship program, has the economy really impacted you where you have to reduce class sizes of your apprenticeship programs? Because I went and did the tour that you guys had, and that was a great tour of the 6 programs in Solano and Napa County.
Yes, we did. Yes, we have.
Yes, it has affected our apprenticeship program. In fact, there's a waiting list to get into some of these programs. And it's unbelievable. For instance, the carpenters, last I checked, we had like 800 people on the list right here, just waiting to get into the program. And we try to train, but there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. When they finish training, you got to get a job. And if there's no jobs available, then they're not going to start any new apprenticeship programs. So until the economy changes, it's going to be pretty dormant. I mean, we're bringing people in, but it's a lot slower than 5, 6 years ago.
And the other question is that what are your kind of high-level issues as you guys kind of look towards candidates or interview candidates in the interview process? Candidates that kind of work for your building trade unions, what are some of the things that you guys look at or look for in the interview process?
Basically, we're looking for candidates that are friendly towards working people. And, you know, we're here unions, and so we represent union workers. But basically, we represent all workers, because we kind of set the standards and the wages and for everybody working. And so we're looking for candidates that support the working people in this country.
Thanks for your answers.
Any other questions? I would like to piggyback on a couple of things that you were being said. And Kimball mentioned the tour. We've had 2 tours now of our state-of-the-art training facilities that we have right here, all within a half an hour's drive. We have the ironworkers facility, we have the carpenters facility in Fairfield, we have the IBEW facility in Napa, and we have plumbers and steam fitters in the city of Vallejo, and now we've just heard we will add to our next tour the insulators apprenticeship program. And you know, as we start talking, and as you, especially council members and even school board members, as you talk about project labor agreements, and you'll hear about pre-qualification for contractors, right? So that you know that you have a workforce out there that's working safely, that's properly trained, and for the most part, and as much as we can, local hire folks that have been through a certified state apprenticeship program. Now, somebody texted me a little while ago and said, watch out for acronyms, because the folks out in the audience might not know acronyms. So PLA is a project labor agreement, right? And so as you do your research on project labor agreements and who the building trades are, you might come up upon another acronym, which is the ABC, and which is the non-union contractors that our union brothers and sisters are competing against. A couple of things that they don't have to fund is health care benefits for their workers so they can be treated with dignity and respect. And they also don't graduate certified apprentices. And I would venture to say that 90% of our contractors out there that maybe are against PLAs are all graduates of union training facilities and apprenticeship programs themselves. And it worked out great for them. But so it's all about a local workforce that's safe so that you're getting the most bang for the buck, and also a local workforce so that you can keep that money in our cities. A lot of times they'll hire non-union contractors that'll come in from Stockton, Arizona, and those folks aren't spending their money here in Solano County, they're taking their money back home. And so those are the issues that you're going to want to bone up with your candidates. And our community partners out there need to know about these issues as well.
What does ABC stand for?
Associated Building Contractors.
And we will be doing another tour next year of the training facilities. And so if you're on our list, we'll be sure to let you know when we do our next one. Any other questions on the building trades issues?
One more comment. I made up some copies of our affiliates and their addresses, and phone numbers and numbers. Yeah, numbers. And there's also if you're interested in looking at project labor agreements, there's a website here. It's there's a website www.calunionlabor.com.
And those will be handed out. We'll leave those out for you guys to pick up on your way out.
Union labor.
Yeah, let me, can I have this display?
That's the website. Sorry. Thank you.
It's CalMuni, CalMuni, labor, LABOR.com. And we'll have, it's on the bottom.
And those have the PLAs.
Pardon?
Those have the PLAs. What about the PLAs?
Exactly.
All right. And so moving right along. Yes.
Just a couple of quick comments. My name is Rita Magner. I'm with Sheet Metal Workers, Local 104, and I'm a trustee. And I wanted to make, a couple of mentions. We just bought Camper World, so we'll be putting our training facilities up there. Hopefully, it'll be ready for next year's before. We are working really hard on a campaign for jobs locally, so anyone here who is a candidate, we're looking at the cities and seeing what they're building, how they're looking at it. We have high unemployment, and the ones who are employed are driving a long distance to work. I used to work in the city a lot. I just had no energy when I got home to go back out and go shopping. So you do it on the way home. And so if you're looking at how to go ahead and boost everything in your local community, shopping, restaurants, whatever. I have a sister who, she and her husband get up at 3:30 in the morning. They wait for the traffic to finish, so they might go out to a restaurant or a Starbucks right near their work. So if you can look at these agreements, you can look at these projects, like the Napa pipeline, I believe there is. There's Fairfield Train Depot. Keep these people working locally, you'll have their money, I swear to God. Because the first thing I think of is, where can I buy it locally? And then I go out from there. So it's important to remember that when you're talking to these people, talking to these developers, ask them where they're coming from, how long they've been here, if they've been here, and what their projections are. It's important to us, it's important to you guys. So thanks.
Thank you very much. And Rita was also the recipient of the Napa Solano Labor Council's Backbone Award. So if you happen to be endorsed by us, Rita does a lot of good work for us as far as helping to get our candidates elected. She is the phone bank. One of the reasons that we wanted to have this, and we hope to have more, and more folks from the community to show up, is, labor needs a PR lift. We need a facelift. The perception when you talk about unions, and the first thing that comes to people's mind are probably folks that look like me or Lou, or a number of folks that are on this podium. But I think a surprising statistic that most folks don't know, since 2007, the majority of union members in this country are now female. And that is what makes up our membership. And that is what makes up our leadership in the most part. We always get slammed with, it's big labor. Right? There goes big labor again. Well, more often than not, the leader of big labor is a 5'4" lady with 2 kids that volunteers her time for her brothers and sisters that she works with to try to get them better pay and wages, or just hold on to those wages, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to hold this academy, was to educate the public, educate our elected officials on the changing face of labor, right? And what these issues are, and how important they are to our members. So our next panelists are in our public sector. When we talk about public sector, those are the people that work in the government centers and work for your cities and whatnot. And we have Michael Weinberg with the SEIU Local 10-1, and I'm going to let them go with the SEIU part. I was trying to stay away from acronyms. And Gabe Weiss with the SEIU Local 1000.
Good afternoon, thank you. I'm a political organizer for SEIU Local 10-1, and so my job is to help members interact in the political process, not just campaigns and helping members make decisions about what races we're going to get involved in, who we endorse, but also helping candidates we endorse get elected, and also working with them throughout their tenure. One of our main tenets as a union. Actually, let me talk a little bit more about our jurisdictions, where we represent workers. In the 2 counties, about 4,000 members in 15 or 16 different jurisdictions, a variety of different cities, counties, schools, courts, and publicly funded nonprofit organizations. So that's sort of who we are very briefly. In talking about, again, our political involvement and our philosophy and our activities, we like to think of it as being member-driven. That is, that where members have a stake in the community, decisions that are being made, that's where we want to be involved and where members are going to be active. So generally speaking, if our members are not employed in your jurisdiction, chances are we're probably not going to be involved in endorsements. And quite frankly, it's a practical reason. It's hard to get people to volunteer. But when you're volunteering to try and elect your boss, we have a much more successful time at that. It's not to say that we don't ever, do endorsements where we don't represent workers, but it's not the norm. And that's because, again, we try to be a member-run union and have members be involved and have a say and play a role. I think that additionally, what's important today that I'd like to say that hasn't already been said is that we need to come together as workers in management, as members of the community. We all live here. We all want to raise a family here. We all want to retire here. And there isn't enough tax money to provide all the services that we'd like to expect. And I think that's one of the things that as a community, whether you're talking specifically about Benicia or Solano County or Napa City or Napa County or any of the other geopolitical subgroups, is that there just isn't enough money to pay for the services that we come to expect or feel we should be entitled to. And so the real challenge is, how do we work together as labor and management, all of us as members of the community, to find common ground to provide for a level of service that we can afford? Sometimes that means putting a measure on the ballot to raise taxes in some way, usually not. And when we do come together to put a measure on the ballot to raise taxes, we have the very difficult 2/3 threshold, or sometimes if it's a school measure, certain school measures, 55%. Still not easy, still very difficult. Making it all the more difficult is that there are people who don't feel that working men and women are part of the community and have a say. Right now, or just in the past couple of weeks, the Secretary of State has certified for circulation a petition to collect signatures to eliminate the right of working men and women to participate in the political process through their unions. It's the third time it's been on the ballot since 1998, and so it's out. They're out at supermarkets. They'll be out anywhere there's in the public where there's groups of people. They'll be out collecting signatures to try and eliminate the ability of working men and women to have a say in the political process and how we govern ourselves and how we create and build our communities. And so I want to take a moment to mention that. And perhaps it'd be appropriate for local jurisdictions to pass resolutions opposed to these measures. Help get the word out. This is not okay, and it's not the way that we should be treating each other. And saying that certain people have fewer rights and fewer privileges in our community. And I think that with that, a lot of the things that I would ordinarily say if we had a shorter panel have already been said. And so I will pass the microphone on to Gabe.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Michael, thank you for that. Can you give us a little more insight as to who is sponsoring that initiative and funding it behind it?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that information, but I can get it to John Riley so we can put it on the website. It's the same people generally who fund all of the attacks on working people, particularly unions. In fact, right now there are 3 petitions that have been approved for circulation that are all, because there has to be a named sponsor. The 3 of them, one is reducing public pensions in a variety of ways and creating a mandatory 2-tier for all public pensions and limiting pensions in other ways. There's the political participation, and there's a third one, I can't think of what it is, but they're all being sponsored by the same law firm. So if you look at the names and then Google those people, you'll find out they all work for the same law firm. So it's the same tax, or the same.
Just on the funders, it's been up to this point, it's basically been a couple of very wealthy individuals sending checks for like 100,000, 200,000. So they're able to raise money quickly because they're just getting some really big checks from some very, very wealthy donors. And just one thing I'd add on that, they were very tricky this year. They did they have an initiative that says unions and corporations are banned from using payroll deduction to contribute to politics. Corporations, of course, don't use payroll deduction, so it looks to people who are signing petitions as though it's a fair thing, but basically it would silence one side and empower the other side to be the only real player in politics.
Did that answer your question?
Unfortunately, yes.
We call it the Paycheck Deception Program, right? We're going to let it allows, say by the union member, what they want us to do is have to go in and every single time you want to give money, you have to re-up every single time. If they were to hold the corporations to the same standard, because corporations spend millions and sometimes billions of dollars on political action, if they had to go to their shareholders and get permission to raise money each time, it would be a lot more difficult for them to do the same thing. Well, they got the money to spend. And quite frankly, what they do is they pay these signature gatherers by the signature. And so we're trying to get a bill passed right now to get signed by the governor to make that illegal. If you're going to send them out there, pay them by the hour, pay them a good wage. Don't have them out there and incentivized to tell misinformation to the people that are signing it. All they want to do is get those signatures. We got more money in their pocket. Gabe, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My name is Gabe Weiss. I'm a political organizer for SEIU Local 1000. We represent 95,000 state workers throughout California. In Napa, Solano, it's about 4,000. To give you kind of an example of some of the workers we represent, it's at the state prisons, Napa State Hospital, the Veterans Home in Yountville, DMV, EDD, toll collectors, we have Caltrans, Workers' Compensation Insurance Fund. So those are some of the agencies that we represent in these counties. As you probably are aware, state workers have been under attack for the last, at least the 5 years that I've been working for SEIU 1000. We've been under attack. It's like 10 years. We've been given furloughs. Last year we were threatened with minimum wage. We've paid more now for our health care and our pension benefits. And another thing that no one really talks about, we have had a hiring freeze, so that if you work in a department and you used to be 6 or 7 of you that did the job, and now all of a sudden there's one, they're not bringing anyone back, so it's one person trying to do the job that 6 people used to do. And so you're really running some of our state workers incredibly ragged. I would say just some of the issues that we're going to be taking on in the next year. The number one is the Paycheck. They say protection, we're calling it Paycheck Deception Act because of how deceptive the initiative really would be. The other thing is that we're always looking at our pensions, attacks to pensions. I think it's kind of a misnomer when people say state workers make thousands and thousands of dollars with their pensions. One of our workers, on average, they're going to make under $30,000 a year in a pension. Trying to live in California with under $30,000 a year is very, very difficult. Other things that we're really we're always looking to do is stop outsourcing in California. It costs billions of dollars each year to do outsourcing. We also lose all of the institutional memory, so that when someone's there and they leave, the state doesn't get a keep of the worker who knows what they're doing there. And typically someone will do the same job. One of our workers will teach one of the outsourced workers what to do, and they're making 5 times what our workers are making. So it's a really inefficient process. we're not against all outsourcing when it makes sense on a real clear project with clear outline of what they're going to try to accomplish, but in general, it's been a pretty costly measure. The other thing that we're looking at is that there's over $2 billion a year in uncollected taxes. This wouldn't even be raising taxes. This is just actually collecting the taxes that are already owed. So we're always looking for ways to kind of get that in the public. Michael was saying some of the stuff that we do also, other than the election stuff, we do a lot of member lobbying about different state agencies and how we can run them more efficiently. Because I think one thing that we need to understand is that when we have enough money in government, I mean, that's when our workers aren't being attacked. So we're not out trying to get as much money as possible and destroy the state general fund. We're trying to make sure that there's a constant revenue stream. So those are some of the key issues, I would say. The other big one for this area is health and safety. If anyone's followed Napa State Hospital, they've had a death within the last year. On average, someone gets assaulted every single day in Napa State Hospital. So this year we're carrying some bills in the assembly, but really trying to raise awareness of the fact that it does not make sense to have state workers being assaulted every single day. That's kind of, I guess, that in a nutshell, if anyone has any questions.
Yes, Mark.
Can I just ask a question? From a candidate perspective, and you may have answered this already, can I go to the website and is there a candidates link that takes you to the forms with the questions that you want to answer from, I mean, everybody has their different questions, whether it's public employees, safety, teachers, health, I mean, everybody, trades, different questions. Can I go find a one-stop shop for what do I need to answer questions and start filling those out? And then is there also a way to find out, so I'm a candidate, I don't necessarily know what I should ask. Should I ask, hey, can you, is there a way you can help me put up signs? Is there anybody that can walk? Is there, I mean, I just don't know, there's the answer to the questions. Can you help me with funding? Of course, everybody wants funding, but that's always tight. So like you said, it's feet on the street. Feet on the street. Lots and lots of feet. So does that exist, or is that planned, or how should one go about getting the information needed to really get engaged?
www.cliffnotes.com. That's what you're looking at, right? Or running for office for dummies. That would be a very good one as well. Caitlin, is there any such thing from the state? I know that we don't. As Caitlin mentioned before, we're going to give you a list, send you a list of all the people that are on this panel. You can call myself or Lou or Mike. You can call these folks pretty much any time of the day and night to try to get those questions answered. And we encourage that, right? Well, not Lou at night, but and we will get back to you. As far as what happens when you're endorsed by labor, right? It oftentimes will depend on where you're at, right? Which city you're running in, which will depend on how much resources will be committed to that area. But those are some of the things that once you're endorsed by labor, then we will advise you as to who to contact for say monetary assistance, who to contact basically would be who or myself as far as the questions on walking precincts, phone banking, putting up signs for the endorsed candidates. And been doing it for quite some time. And so, and when you get into the interview process, just because you're there to answer questions doesn't mean that you can't have an opportunity to ask some questions as well. As a matter of fact, we encourage that, right? We want those sessions, you're there for a half an hour, and we want those sessions to be as much of an educational opportunity for you as it is for us to get to know the candidates and try to make that very difficult decision on who are the best folks that are going to represent the men and women that we represent. Does that answer your question? Any other? Yes, Kimball.
Yeah, I just have a question about outsourcing. Is that outsourcing, when you say outsourcing, are you stating outsourcing, are those outsourcing the contract employees inside your business, or outsourcing call centers and other things outside of the state and possibly outside of the country there?
So far, I've not heard too many out of the country, but definitely with other states and also just the private corporation with non-unionized workers, or sometimes it is a unionized worker, but very rarely.
Do you guys find out from the outsourcing, is that you've got kind of an institutional memory, and that, you know, you kind of forget what, you know, day-to-day jobs of what people do when they outsource and try to bring it in because it doesn't work from outsourcing. That's not a difficult thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Well, we're seeing that all across America. Yeah. You don't have to outsource jobs to another country to impact workers here locally. All you have to go is right to work still, right? Send those jobs over there, and that's the example that we're talking about. If you don't have union jobs, you don't have people out negotiating for the best interest of the workers collectively, then your salary is going to be low, your wages and your benefits are going to be non-existent, and that's going to drive down the economy as a whole. All workers in that area, wages are going to be lower and they're not going to get benefits. So it's a big problem. Yes, sir.
To comment on your question on outsourcing, one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is that our opponents, that is the opponents of working people, will use both outsourcing and insourcing as a way to divide labor and our allies in office. A good example is road maintenance and road construction, where typically projects are, and I won't claim to speak authoritatively. I'll let my brothers from the building trades speak more authoritatively, but just get this thought out, is that jurisdictions out in trying to be more effective are thinking of ways where they can bring previously contracted out road maintenance or road construction in-house and do it with existing staff, because again, there's not enough money to provide all the services that we feel we're entitled to, and they feel like if they don't pay a contractor, then they can do more with their dollars. Makes sense, but then it helps to inflame the very high unemployment in the building trades. So how do we all come together and figure these issues out and not let diminished resources divide us all? And I don't know if Lou or Ben has any other comments, but it's just something else to think about. You talk about diminished resources and outsourcing, another way that it can divide us.
Well, and the continued comment with that is when, beg your pardon?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. I teach school, sorry. Is the same thing with CSCA and CTA, is that we're all under Prop 98, and the same thing with community college and higher ed, is that we don't want to be divided. I want to have my librarian aide there. I mean, it'd be lovely to have a librarian 5 days a week in every middle school and a nurse at every school. Okay, and that's something we have to be. So, Michael, you're absolutely correct. We all have to work on that to make sure that we're not divided. That our goal is to make sure that we provide a quality product to whomever, but making sure that our people are taken care of. So we all have to walk that fine line. But that was a very good example.
Well, and that's a very, it's oftentimes when you're negotiating with, say, municipalities, right? Oftentimes they want to separate everybody and negotiate separately. So, instead of having the people, if you're truly trying to solve a budget crisis, you need to have all the stakeholders in the same room. But if you don't have the leaders of the different organizations sitting across from each other, trying to solve that problem, what's going to happen is they're going to be, those cops did this, and the firemen did this, and you guys are doing this, and now you're having adversarial atmosphere going into negotiations when you're supposed to be there to solve a budget crisis. And so it happens all the time. We're very proud of ourselves that especially in Napa and Solano County, that we've been able to build a program, to talk to each other, to have get the folks in the room and try to hash out those issues before they become worse issues. We're not gonna take a 15-minute break. We're gonna buzz through this, and we'll probably end up earlier than a 4 o'clock stop time. The restrooms are on the other side of the door over there. One of the biggest things that we're talking about as a country is our health care, right? I mean, I know that when I supported President Obama, I was hoping that we were going to get single-payer health care so that we could, it would no longer be an issue to, that the cost of health care wouldn't be as much of a burden on not only your municipalities, but your working men and women. And we've seen health care costs rise. We talked about, Lou talked about how much it costs workers per hour of their wages for health care. And so we have Doug Jones from SEIU, United Healthcare Workers, and Lenny Rizzuto from SEIU, United Long-Term Care Workers.
My name is Doug Jones, and indeed I'm a regional political organizer for SEIU, United Healthcare Workers. Just as a starter, how many of you in this country have received healthcare yourself or your family at a Kaiser hospital or clinic, a Sutter hospital or clinic, one of the convalescent hospitals, or in your home with in-home support services? Okay. So it's extraordinarily likely, in fact I would say definitively, you've been taken care of by a number of vendors. SEIU UHW represents mainly private sector workers here in Solano and Napa counties, almost entirely actually in Solano County. Over 4,000 members we represent in the two counties. And as I said, we represent Kaiser, Sutter, and amongst the places that we represent is a place that you may have heard actually had a one-day unfair labor practice strike on Wednesday on Mariposa Care and Rehab Center in Fairfield. The workers there were fighting to prevent the employer from continuing to commit a number of unfair labor practices. These are violations of labor law, such as engaging in bad faith bargaining that fails to move anything reasonably at the bargaining table. You're not actually trying to gain a settlement, you're trying to compel the workers to accept a substandard settlement. Telling those same workers that, well, if you decide to defend yourself at the bargaining table by going out on strike, sending them letters at home and at the workplace saying, you might not keep your job if you go out on strike. Now, these are violations of labor law, and the workers on Wednesday fought to try to stop the employer from doing that. But they were also fighting very principally for decent patient care standards. It's one of the most important things that our members do. As an example of the things that are happening on Mariposa and a number of other facilities that are run by the same manager that runs on Mariposa, is that patients at 7 of the chain convalescent hospitals run by the same employer, patients have filed a class action lawsuit saying that the employer is not providing the minimum hours of nursing care necessary by state law. Now, the fact is that we would prefer that the state agency discovers that, but unfortunately, state budgets are cut. It's often difficult to, for them to get out in time to find that these violations are taking place. The other thing that happens, and I can say that from personal experience, went through a different sort of examination process when I worked at an acute care hospital, one of the Sutter hospitals in the East Bay for about 25 years. We're examined by both state and federal agencies. Hospitals are usually told a few days in advance that, oh, the inspector's coming. So now, the best employers are maintaining standards to code in patient care in all ways, sanitation, nursing hours. They're taking care of that all the time. The worst employers, like the ones up Mariposa, maintain low standards and all of a sudden will clean things up a day or two before the inspectors come in. So the workers were working to defend patient care standards here in Solano County. But obviously they were also working to do what unions do, which is help our members negotiate for improved wages and benefits so that you're making more money providing care in a convalescent hospital or in home care than you would be flipping a burger. And if it wasn't for unions, that wouldn't be true. you would literally be making more money flipping a burger than providing care. And we would all agree that that doesn't seem right, correct? We're not going to get the best care from somebody who's being paid $9 an hour with no benefits. So it's important that we have healthcare professionals and we defend that. The standpoint of the work that our members do here regionally in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. on both state, local, and federal legislation are many areas that help defend not just healthcare, but other aspects that are important to us in our society. We fight for improved labor laws. As one of the things that happened this last week is that one of our members went to Washington, D.C. and testified before the National Labor Relations Board about their struggle in bringing a union to their facility. They fought for 13 years to get a union at their facility. The first organizing campaign ended about a dozen years previously, and what happened is that the employer, a week before the election, took an entire group of workers, the respiratory therapists, and outsourced them. So all of a sudden, they're out of the bargaining unit, and they're not eligible for the election. Now that was awful. It was immoral as hell, but it was awful. So that's why we fight to improve labor laws. We fight for better patient care standards, and oftentimes the law can bring those forward. For example, registered nurses in California don't have to fight contract by contract, facility by facility to have a reasonable workload. Registered nurses in California have a maximum at acute care hospitals of five patients per nurse in medical surgical unit and 2 patients per nurse in the intensive care unit. That's an important win in the political process for patient care. We're fighting for those similar forms of ratios or some state legislated process for staffing in our classifications, which is almost everybody but registered nurses. We represent licensed vocational nurses, nursing assistants, ward clerks, respiratory therapists, environmental service, housekeeping, dietary, just about every other position in the hospitals other than the registered nurses. We also fight for safer communities. One of the things that Caitlin mentioned a couple minutes ago was fighting for consumer safety. One way in which that shows up that we've been very successful over generations to bring greater consumer safety and greater safety at the workplace is burn units. We used to have burn units at every single hospital, and that was true when I first started working at my hospital in the early 80s. Almost every hospital had a burn unit. There's about 1 burn unit per county now. People don't get burned at work. People don't get burned by their household appliances. People don't get burned by their automobiles because of regulations. This helps society, right? And we're involved in those fights as well. And we're also fighting for state and federal laws which maintain and strengthen the regulation of the healthcare industry. It's a well-regulated industry, and we think that's the way it should be. In comparison to other industries, healthcare is much better regulated. We also fight on behalf of employers, and that's true of both the counties that employ in-home supportive services and for private employers, that is the majority of who we represent. We're able to get funding streams for convalescent hospitals that provide a reasonable wage and benefit. They can gain funding from the state that will help them pay for that, because many of these convalescent hospitals have a narrow bottom line. Now, that helps out the healthcare workers whether they have a union or not, because we got that into state law. That's not in a contract, that's in state law. And we've been able to win similar gains in funding for hospitals. We're able to win in the Affordable Care Act an extra funding stream for in-home supportive services from the Community First Choice option. We help out in our employers, the people that pay our paychecks as well. And obviously it's really important for us to fight on behalf of affordable, quality health care. And 2 ways in which we've done that. One, at the state level, is Assembly Bill 52 is something that's going through the legislature this year. For the first time, it would regulate the rate hikes, the funding for rate hikes for healthcare insurance in the same way that all other insurance in California is regulated. Home, fire, automobile insurance. The reason that those insurance rates don't go up double digits per year is because the insurance commissioner is able to ask those companies, prove to me that you need to do this. That's not true of healthcare, and that's why in healthcare insurance for both county, city, employers go up oftentimes 10, 12, 20% a year. It's because it needs this regulation. Despite the fact that we have a very tight relationship with Kaiser not very happy about us going out there and backing up the AB 52. We are supporting that. We're hopeful it's going to pass the legislature this year. And the Affordable Care Act at the federal level is something that's going to bring the ability for 32 million people who currently don't have health care insurance to be able to buy health care. That improves funding streams for care providers. It strengthens the solvency of Medicare and Medicaid. And a really important thing, because one of the things that we're struggling to do as an organization and the entire labor movement is bring people factual information, because there's so many lies out there. It's really important to understand things like the Affordable Care Act actually closes the budget deficit. It brings down our federal deficit by about $143 billion in this decade. That's if we keep it. Now, how many people thought that the healthcare reform that was passed at the federal level in 2010 is going to increase our debt? Did people think that? It's out there. It's a lie. It's really important to know that. Right? So we know that we've gone over the last decade of low taxes, low business regulations, adversarial labor laws. What that's brought us is high unemployment, reductions in pay and benefits, which makes it hard for our businesses to finance themselves because of the fact that people don't have money to consume, and it makes it difficult for us to educate our people so that businesses have the ability to have an educated workforce. So it's, despite the fact that we represent private sector workers, we understand that the public commons needs to be funded. And so, in closing, I'd say that there's a need for that rhetoric to be out there in the public, and I think at the elected level, the farther you go up the chain, I think the less we have that. So, what I'd like to see is rhetoric like was used by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a speech that he gave during his 1936 presidential campaign, in talking about what had happened the previous 4 years as they recovered from a depression that was even worse than the recession that we're in now. This is very bad. 1933-34 was much worse. But in his 36th presidential campaign, President Roosevelt said, the only way to keep the government out of the red is to keep the people out of the red. And so we had to balance the budget of the American people before we could balance the budget of the national government. That makes common sense, doesn't it? That last part was also FDR. I didn't add that comment. That was him in some speech. Right? That's what we need from public officials. Thanks for listening.
I think we have a question. Richard?
My name is Robert Fuzzy. I'm a retired teacher and a member of the United Democrats of Southern Solano County. And I was just wondering, we're talking about single payer and healthcare costs and things like that. And I'm wondering if anyone here can fill us in on the disposition of Senate Bill 810. As far as I know, that's supposed to go to the Appropriations Committee sometime in August or September. And who knows, from there. I'd love to hear, an update on that.
I'll talk in generalities, but I think it gets to the basics of what you're talking about. It's likely to pass the legislature again, although certainly we should call the House that it's in right now and encourage them to pass it out of that House. You realize that what you're talking about is a bill that would create a single-payer system for healthcare in California, right? That's passed the legislature twice. Did you guys know that?
Yep.
Right, and the previous governor vetoed it, right? So I think it's going to be very quickly important for people to pressure the governor to sign it. It's very possible that he would want to see amendments that would water it down quite a bit, so that it's, might get a passage, but that it might get watered down quite a bit. Frankly, the other thing that we're going to have to concede is that this particular bill does not fill in the funding sources for single payer. That would have to be a further discussion that would have to take place in another legislative session. So even if it passed this year, that would not create single payer tomorrow. The other thing that SB 810 would face is a challenge in that it would have to ask for a special dispensation from the Affordable Care Act. The federal health care reform that was passed requires a change in the healthcare system like single payer or any other significant change that would be more regressive. It requires the federal government agency that oversees the Affordable Care Act to approve that change. It has to meet the same criteria from which the idea of the Affordable Care Act went through. So it's very possible that it could pass that test. But those are the things that I know about what's happening with single payer.
Right, we'll hear from Lenny.
My name's Lenny Rizzuto. I'm with the United Long-Term Care Workers Union, SEIU. I'm the representative for Solano, Napa, and Mendocino counties. In Solano County alone, we have 2,700 members who provide care for folks who, lack of a better word, don't want to be in a nursing home, who want to maintain dignity into their homes, to fulfill their life to the fullest. Another thing, it's not just elderly, it's also disabled. How many people want to see their kids in a nursing home? You want to be able to maintain your kid at home and take care of them and make sure they're taken care of correctly. Our members here in Solano County, year after year, after year after year, face cuts, not only from the county, but from the state as well. We were facing an 87% cut last year, the beginning of this year. We were able to get that down to a 3.6% cut, and are still facing cuts for this year. Again, this year, the county is trying to cut wages for home care. Home care workers are very underpaid. They make $11.50 an hour right now. $11.50 an hour right now. A lot of these folks, this is their only income for their home. Their only income. Not many people could survive with a rate of $11.50 with a family. Okay. Our home care workers here, they're sick and tired of fighting. And I'll tell you right now, in the past, they haven't been very active. Some have, but not many. But this year, folks are upset and they're tired of this. Had a meeting last night with about 150 folks who are ready to knock on doors right now to do what they can to stop these cuts. And we will do what it takes.
Along the same, we talk about public sector and building trades. We also have, other private sector unions. And Pete Darrenelli, who also is the president of the Napa Solano Central Labor Council, and is with UFCW Local Number 5. Pete?
Thank you. I'm with United Food and Commercial Workers. We basically represent the grocery stores, Safeways, Lucky's, Valericus Markets, Rite Aids, Food Maxes. And our biggest competition, of course, and everybody's heard before, is Walmart, the box stores. And it came over my email while I was here, but on Wednesday, the White House had a reception honoring retailers, including Walmart, who are expanding into unserved areas, which are known as the food deserts. UFCW President Johansson challenged the White House to hold Walmart to a higher standard. Walmart, hold on a second here. Walmart represents the largest private employee sector in the United States and in the world. But they're also the leader in creating poverty-level jobs. Walmart does not pay the same as UFCW members do. Our members, part-time, full-time, can get up to anywhere between $18.50 and $20 an hour working. That is not going to happen in a Walmart or a Winco. Our members also have health care provided by the employers and a defined pension plan, which is also per the employer. So with that, their families are also covered with health and welfare, and that is the main thing right now. With all the cuts that's happening in the counties and the states, everything is being cut. At least the employees with UFCW still can go, and their families still can go to the doctors, to the dentists, to the eye doctors in order for coverage. And really, that's about it. I mean, our stores, when Safeway, Lucky's comes into an area, we don't ask for subsidies. The companies build 90% of the time, I'm going to have to say, with union labor, and they're totally staffed with union labor. And really, that's just about it. If you have any questions, I mean, I can go on and on about Walmart, but I think everybody here knows about Walmart. They don't want to hear any more about Walmart. So if there's any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer for you.
Just a quick comment on private sector. A lot of times people think that private sector workers don't need to be as politically active because they're not, part of the public sector. But we have bills every year in Sacramento that are bills to eliminate the 8-hour day, eliminate lunch breaks. Every kind of protection that exists in law gets challenged every single year. And so it's very important that the private sector unions play a role, and they do play a role, in safeguarding working conditions for all workers, most of whom are non-union. But those floors, those minimum standards that affect all workers would not be there if the private sector labor movement didn't fight for them on behalf of non-union workers.
Pete, Southern California grocery strike? What's that? I was hearing something about that.
As of right now, for the last since March, they've been working without a contract. The major employers down there is Kroger's, Bonds, which is Safeway, and then Albertsons, which is Super Value down in the LA area. They've had a mediator there almost since day one, because everybody kind of knows what happened 8 years ago. In 03 with the strike, it was basically a 4-month strike that crippled their health and welfare, their pension, and their working standards. It seems like now the companies are going after the rest of what they have left. They basically lost pretty close to about 9,000 members over the last 8 years. And as of right now, it's still at a stalemate. There is, basically all it is from the companies is takeaways. The pension plan has been in the red since way before there was the Pension Protection Act of 2006. So that is off the table because they are working on that, but they want to take the health care away. They don't want any guaranteed hours for people. They want to take the premiums away. They want to take the Sunday pay away. They just want to cut the contract. That's where it stands. But as of right now, we have not gotten the word that we are ready to go down there to help them out. So they're still talking, but it doesn't look promising as far as the locals looking at it right now.
Why is the standard for Southern California grocery workers important for people here in the county?
Well, for us, it's important because if, and I'm going to use Safeway as a prime example because we don't really have Kroger's up here, and Albertsons left a long time ago. Actually, Albertsons left about 5-6 years ago. But if they can gut their contract and take away the health care or make us pay more out of pocket for health care and also not have the benefits, they also want in their contract down there that they can hire new hires to where they don't have to work a minimum amount of hours. Up here we have a minimum amount of hours because that protects your health and welfare. If they can take that away from Southern California, then they will come up here and do the same thing. And unfortunately what happens, everybody's scared out here. All of our workers are scared. They know what's going down in LA. They know what happened 8 years ago. And they are deathly afraid that if they are able to cripple or basically cripple LA, that it might not come up here next, this contract, which will be in October of this year, but the following contract, they are going to come full steam at us. And right now, healthcare is the big issue. For unions, it's going to be a real big issue in 2 years with Obamacare. What's going to happen? How's it going to affect us? So we're actually looking at just a 2-year contract. So that scares our employees because they're used to 3, 4, 5-year contracts. There's security there. There's not really much security with the 2-year contract.
And if I understand correctly, that the healthcare, the expense to gain healthcare insurance might become so great that many of your workers might choose not. They wouldn't be able to afford healthcare insurance through the employer, perhaps?
Well, it is through the employer right now. It's part of our CBA. It's part of our package. Right now, our package on top of our hourly wage is about $7 an hour. It's being projected that healthcare will go up another $1.50 over the next 2 years, and that's a lot for the employers to have to pay. So unless we can find a way of bringing it down, there probably will be cost sharing on our part. We don't want that, but we have to wait and see what happens. But a lot of it's going to depend on what happens with the health care.
Besides the fact that it's the wrong thing to do.
Yes.
For employers that are making massive amounts of money, like Safeway, I'm also concerned as a taxpayer because when rich employers stop paying health care for workers or make it so expensive,
it falls on the taxpayers.
It falls on the taxpayers.
Yes, it falls on the cities and counties.
Yeah.
Exactly, and everything's being cut, so it's going to be there for nobody.
Any more questions? Well, yeah, Alan.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I don't know whose idea this was. Good. It must be because I'm in my third campaign. I wish you had done this my first.
Well, and so do we. You know, this is all about trying to, elect and build relationships with the folks that truly have the working men and women's best interests at heart. And sometimes that's difficult. And as we go issue by issue, agreeing on issues are sometimes difficult, but we have to keep that dialogue open. We started, coming together about 9 years ago. Everybody remembers Nebraska Street in Vallejo. They had 20 union offices up and down that street, good union halls. And election after election, you could drive down that street and know every single candidate that was running for office because everybody was endorsing different candidates based on, my cousin did this, or, I know that person, or they're a good elected official, but there was no way to actually get together and vet the process. And so we now have that. We have a very diverse group of affiliates that come together every month and talk about issues, and then we get together and work on the political process and then run a field campaign. And that's what this is all about. And so we're very happy to see not only the elected officials that are here, the potential future elected officials, but also the members of the community that took time out of their day to come and get a little bit more educated about what it means to be union. And that union working men and women aren't maybe what they're being portrayed to be. And, that's our responsibility. We have to get out there. We have to PR labor a little bit better. We have to know what's going on. And our own members, right? We have to convince and educate our own members to quit voting against their own self-interest election after election. Because our opponents wrap things up in the American flag, and they talk about guns and religion and sexual preference, and it's almost like the monkey grinder at the carnival, right? Ooh, look at the monkey. Well, while that's happening, somebody is picking somebody's back pocket. And so these issues are very important to folks, but we need to be able to educate them on why having good union representation is so important, why supporting candidates that support them is so important, right? So that we can continue to have, we shouldn't be asking or looking at folks and saying, why do they have benefits? I don't have them. It should be the opposite. They have benefits. What do I need to do to get those benefits, right? And And you know, with the attacks on union labor, the layoffs that everybody out here has been experiencing, I don't know a business owner, right, that lives in our county that hasn't been affected negatively. I go to my dentist, and my dentist is like, wow, it's very, very tough out there, right? And then I ask him what his opinion is on union workers, or what did you vote for on 226, or what was your opinion on that? And if you know, if you're a small business owner trying to make it on a very limited salary, and now all of a sudden the folks that come to your business to buy your products or to have your service are gone, it's going to affect their businesses as well. And so that's what we need to try to make sure that we impart on the citizens. So on behalf of everybody here on the panel, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. Yes, Monica.
I just was going to make that announcement whenever you're done talking.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. One of my other hats is that I am the parliamentarian for Solano County Central Democratic Committee. This is for Democrats only. If there's a Republican counterpart, you can come and talk to. But on Wednesday, August 17th, you'll be getting a letter, but I wanted to have you put this in your agenda. Wednesday, August 17th at 6:30 is going to be our endorsement night. And so it's going to be at the Solano County Government Building, you know, the 6-story PLA, built, you know, contract and everything. It's at our meeting rooms. If you know where John Garamendi's office is, it's across the street. I don't remember the name of that street. But, and I'm going to be sending you a cover letter and questionnaire soon, but I just want you to put it in your agenda because you guys will all start getting real busy. So that I just wanted to make sure that information got out.
And one other thing that I wanted to mention, because this comes up quite often, you know, we do work with the Democratic Party a lot because we share common candidates. But you know, labor is nonpartisan, and especially in nonpartisan elections, we will endorse from any party. You know, what we're looking for is who's got the best interests of working men and women in mind. And we have just as good a relationship with Republicans as we do with Democrats, especially in nonpartisan offices. We have to. We have to keep those lines of communications open. So I just wanted to, and so, you know, if the Republican Party is here and they have an endorsement procedure, we'll definitely announce it here as well. Was there any more questions from the, yes, Sean?
Just a comment, John. On the questionnaire, I got one for you that's about the size of a book.
Yes, sir.
And that's fine, I'm a writer, so I'll fun with it. But Monica's got one, the IBW has one. Maybe it would be interesting if you guys could figure out how to consolidate that.
Well, you have to understand, right? You have to understand your audience. When you go in front of IBW, you're talking about IBW issues. When you come in front of the Central Labor Council, you're talking about 38 affiliates that all have different issues that we need to be able to gauge where our future political candidates are. So while it may seem onerous, and if you need any, you know, if you have any questions about that questionnaire, feel free to give me a ring. You'll be receiving my cell phone and my email. And so any questions that you have on the process, any questions you have that maybe didn't get answered today, feel free to call. Thank you very much for taking the time.
I just want to leave you guys with one parting remark. And it's a very stark statement that I read. It makes a lot of sense, and it should make sense to everybody here. We all live in this community. Good enough isn't good anymore. We have to do better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's hang around and meet some of the folks. Thank you.